32-year-old Anthony Trice claimed that he was playing video games one night and became frustrated because he was losing. After he lost the game, he took his frustration out by punching his newborn son in the head.
I've been a single dad for 8 days because my wife is in the Philippines, and I had no idea it was this tough.
My grandfather remarried within 6 months of my grandma's very unexpected death, and on that video, every comment that said they don't see an issue with it was from a man.
This is about the 5th year I've been alone on Christmas.
I recently came across this video that really made me think. It's about a man who has been spending his Christmas alone for 5 years now. He was crying in the video because, according to him, year after year, he has been isolated. Honestly, his story is something many men are dealing with, though they might not show it. Men often feel like they have to hide their loneliness, but the reality is a lot of them end up being alone because of their own actions.
This is about the 5th year I've been alone on Christmas. Everybody I know has either left or passed away. I'm just having a rough time, man. Just anybody say Merry Christmas? Sure be nice.
This man's loneliness isn't just about being single on Christmas Day. It's about how his behavior and the behavior of many other men leads them to this place. I don't know what his full story is. He did mention that it's either they left or they passed. Focusing on the people that left, it's most likely his wife left him or his kids left him. When men are not responsible, when they are not accountable, and when they fail to show up for the people that they are meant to show up for in their lives, be it their partner, their children, or their family, when they push people away in their life, over time, isolation grows. They tend to be lonely because when they look around, they don't have anyone around to be there with them or share moments with them. You can't maintain a good relationship if you're not there for people or if you keep pushing people away from your life. This isn't just about this individual, this man. Men's poor behavior affects everyone around them. Wives, kids, friends, and with time it leads to them isolating themselves from others. But here is the truth. This loneliness often comes from a lack of effort. Some men don't want to make effort to create good connection, real relationship with people. It could also be due to lack of maturity and lack of accountability. If men don't take responsibilities for their action, they won't be able to hold on to connections that matter most. With relationships, you need to build good connections. So the next time we see a man crying because he's lonely, I think it's important for us to consider why. Why is he lonely? It's most likely to be he didn't show up for the people he had in his life. I've made a video in the past where I spoke about the hospice nurses. I think they call them hospice nurses, the care home nurses, talking about how men are lonely, how they die alone, how people don't come visiting them, how family members abandon them, how their children abandon them. A lot of men end up being lonely because of the choices they made and how they treated people in the past. Loneliness isn't a result of just being alone. It's often a reflection of how we treat others. If men want to break this loneliness cycle, they need to start taking responsibilities for their actions and be more accountable.
If your child's father has poor impulse control, if your child's father has anger issues, if your child's father is childish, if your child's father flies off the handle quickly, please do not leave your baby with that man, and it does not matter if he's the father or not. A 32-year-old father from Louisville, Kentucky has finally been charged for the 2019 unaliving of his own newborn son. 32-year-old Anthony Trice claimed that he was playing video games one night and became frustrated because he was losing. After he lost the game, he took his frustration out by punching his newborn son in the head. He claims that after this, he attempted to pick the baby up and console the baby. He went to bring the baby to the kitchen to get the baby a bottle, but on his way, he, dropped the baby. After getting the baby a bottle, he brought the baby back to the room, cleaned the baby up, and propped the bottle up in front of the baby, and then called his child's mother's mother. The baby's maternal grandmother urged him to bring the baby to the hospital, and the baby succumbed to his injuries 2 days later. I don't believe that Anthony is telling the truth, but I guess it doesn't matter now. He's been sentenced to 20 years.
This story is not an isolated incident. Too many men all around us struggle with managing their emotions. Anger, frustration, they are quick to lash out, especially when things don't go their way. And when men can't control that rage, it leads to devastating consequences. This isn't just a bad decision in the heat of the moment. It is a reflection of deep-rooted issues, lack of responsibility, failure to protect those who depend on them. If your child means anything to you, if you claim to love your children, you don't punch them, you don't hurt them. There is no excuse for that kind of behavior, if you ask me. It's about accountability. Men need to be accountable for their actions, for their impulses, for their behavior. Too often, we see men excusing their bad behaviors, pushing the blame on circumstances, or pretending like their anger is justified, like in this case. So in his head, he's thinking he made sense with his explanation because you lost a game and you were pissed. So you had to punch your innocent child on the head. There is no justification for violence, especially against someone as vulnerable as a newborn. This man's story is about a bigger issue. Too many men out there have unchecked anger. They don't know how to manage their emotions, and they don't take responsibility for how their behavior affects others around them. Men need to do better, not just for themselves, but for the people they are supposed to protect and care for. With this type of story, it's important for us to ask ourselves, what kind of men are we raising? If we don't hold men accountable for their actions, this will continue.
I've been a single dad for 8 days because my wife is in the Philippines, and I had no idea it was this tough. I was prepared for the cleaning, lodging back and forth, the unexpected sickness, the feeding, the sleeping. But one thing I was not prepared for was the mental load. I had no idea it felt like this, to think about things that need to be done that haven't been done, or things that I need to plan to do. It's so draining that I don't even have the energy to take care of myself at all. And now that I understand this, I have so much empathy for my wife, and I truly understand what she means by this mental load and how draining it is. This has really opened my eyes, and it's making me ask myself, what more can I be doing? What has been going on that I haven't been seeing, and it's been right in front of me? How can I step up the way that my wife needs me to, instead of doing things that I think are helping? Now I know I can't always take the mental load away, but I can definitely make it lighter.
The mental load, the invisible weight that women carry every single day. It's not just about getting things done. It's about thinking about everything. The planning, the organizing, the constant what's next. Women planning meals for a whole week, figuring out what needs to be bought, remembering appointments, making sure everything at home runs smoothly. And men don't recognize that. Men don't talk about it. Men don't acknowledge it. They don't appreciate it. I tell you, mental load is more draining than physical task. It's the kind of stress that builds up inside of you because you're carrying everyone's needs in your head. Many men shy away from sharing that load with their wives or their partners. They don't see it. It's invisible, so it makes it hard for them to recognize it. It's so easy for men to ignore it because it doesn't scream at them the way washing dishes or taking out the trash does. Let me say this. Mental load is everything. It's what keeps the family running. It's what keeps you from dropping the ball. Mental load is like a never-ending game of chess. You have to always keep strategizing, analyzing, planning, and making sure you have no slips through the cracks. With all these, many men go through life without even acknowledging how exhausting this is. They don't appreciate it when their wives or their partners carry the mental load for them. It is not a woman's job to take on the burden of the mental load alone. It should be shared. Men should also partake in it to make life easier for the woman, to make the running of the family easier for both parties. It's not a woman's responsibility to carry the mental load alone.
My grandfather remarried within 6 months of my grandma's very unexpected death. And on that video, every comment that said they don't see an issue with it was from a man. And I think that's incredibly telling. And I know I can't really tell just from your profile picture and your name, but I'm willing to take an educated guess here. It's extremely telling, though, that the amount of men that said that they don't see any issue with my grandfather remarrying within 6 months, and actually it's an issue that the family thinks that they have a say in it, is crazy. Because that shows you just how little men think of the family unit. Men think, oh, well, what is best for me? What is good for me? What do I want to do for me? And women are conditioned to think about what is good for everyone and the best for the family. Because you know what's the reality for single moms? Single moms don't date because that's what's best for their kids. And it's not because they shouldn't. It's because usually single moms just have to sacrifice dating because A, people are really creepy when you have young children, and B, you don't have the time or the mental energy to put into a relationship half the time. And I know that my grandfather was older. His kids were for the most part raised and out of his house. So I know that that's not the case here, but 6 months after the unexpected death of your partner at 40 years is wild. Like, just to put it in perspective, my grandmother was perfectly healthy as far as we all knew all of like the year before. No one had any clue. My grandfather and my grandma were talking about how wildly in love they were, planning their 40th anniversary party. Like, things were going normal. And then in, I think, November, she got diagnosed with breast cancer. By March, she passed away. In April, he joined the support group and met my step grandma. And over the summer, they got married. That means that within 1 year, actually within like 9 months, she got diagnosed, died, and he already got a replacement wife. And the issue here is it's not like this was someone that he knew for years and he formed a deep connection with and he loved so much and decided that he was just going to remarry and replace his wife. No, this was someone that he intentionally told us that he married just because he needed someone to take care of him. That's not fair to Becky, my step-grandma, and it's not fair to my grandmother. Because the reality is, you can't just move on from a marriage like that. The reality is that, sure, you should move on. We want you to have companionship, and we want you to have that. But within weeks of your wife passing, you shouldn't be focused on who's going to come next. Weeks after her passing, like still processing everything, still paying for the funeral, mind you, you should be focused on how to fix yourself, how to mourn your wife and move on properly, because there's no way that you could be a proper partner within weeks of going through something that traumatic. And if it wasn't traumatic, there was a problem there.
So he actually got married to the step grandma because he wanted her to take care of him. A lot of men get married because they want women to take care of them. They don't get married because they love the women they are getting married to. Their focus is find a woman that will take care of you, a woman that is willing to take your BS and remain in that relationship with you. Men rely on women for so many things, if not everything. They rely on women to be their caregivers, emotional support, and even household managers. Once a woman stops fulfilling those roles, whether due to death or any other reason, suddenly the man moves on. He goes on to find another woman to fill that void. The crazy thing about this is that this kind of behavior is normalized. It's okay for a man to move on within 6 months. Some people even move on within 3 months. Even in a month, some men have remarried. But it's a problem if a woman does the same. Many men can't survive without having a woman taking care of them. If they lose that care from the women they have in their lives, it becomes an inconvenience that needs to be solved immediately. Like I said before, most men don't get married for love. It's the same practice we saw in the past with their ancestors. They buy the slave, they keep the slave in their house, they expect the slave to cook, clean, do their laundry, parent their children for them. It's the same pattern. I made a video in the past and I spoke about how this whole mindset, this practice, this culture, this tradition has moved on from one generation to another and is being practiced in this our current generation. So most men have this mindset. Women are meant to clean, cook. So when they're looking for who to marry, they're looking for a woman that is capable of taking care of them, not a woman that they love. No, they're happy to marry the wife material, the way they put it. The wife material means a woman that can take their BS, cook, a woman that is domesticated, and then they will go out there and cheat on that woman with the women they claim to love. In my opinion, her grandfather was selfish. Most men are selfish. All they do is think about themselves and how they are going to benefit from a situation. That's exactly what we saw. When the grandma passed, he couldn't function without her, so he needed to get a replacement as soon as possible, and that was what he did. This is me repeating myself again. To a lot of men, marriage isn't about love, it is about convenience. They are out there looking for women that will serve them and make their lives easier for them. If you'd love to watch more videos like this, click this video to watch how men drain women by default, and I'll see you all in the next one.